You kind of been there, done that, right? You kind of, but you've also gone through the trough of disappointment and the industry sort of not understanding, and it gets lonely sometimes, and maybe now it's starting to pick up. You're smiling. I mean, is it, you know, is your word of advice to stick at it, or is it naive to think that these things are going to change anytime soon?
You need, on the vendor side, you need people who will push customers off their traditional models. And now is a very different time for us, having been a provider of platforms for linear television and, you know, the $70 billion industry, and now being a multi-platform provider, working, you know, two of our customers, big customers up here, on things like addressability and how do you sell advertising regardless of the platform. What I would say is that change comes slowly. Technology change is sometimes easier than the process change. I can think back to when cable networks were competing against the broadcast networks, and it was a fragmentation issue. A lot of the large, you know, if you look at Turner, you look at Fox, you look at Discovery, their challenge was I needed automation because I have lots of channels, which are kind of proxies for audiences. I may have a news, a sports, entertainment, kids, and I have to sell a lot more spots to get the broadcast dollar, but I can't hire reams of people to do it. So at that point, the innovation was around automation. As technology vendors like myself and maybe some others that were there were innovating and scaling our platforms, we saw opportunity for more than just automation, optimization and yield management. The challenge with linear television, that now I believe that wall is breaking down, is there was nothing pushing either both agencies and the sellers to change business practices about the way, for us, a lot of, because we do a lot of national television with you know, programmers and syndicators, the model on how you're selling, which was sell the content, sell audience. One thing I heard earlier today is, you know, television wasn't about selling audiences. National television sells audiences. It's just they're selling a Nielsen demo. They're guaranteeing a CPM, and then they get to move the spots around to try to get to that audience. But the agencies say, I know I'm buying an audience, I'm buying the content, but I'm just going to tell you, you can't move that spot once you give me my flow chart. I know I bought an audience and I bought a CPM. So all these games begin. A national television, a smart one, will say, well, I'm going to underestimate what you're going to deliver so that I will underdeliver, and then I can move some of your spots somewhere else. Some of my cheaper stuff. Because you're really buying an audience. So a lot of these games, and people I don't think understand in the national television market how much of these business practices that, and we've been for years, and some areas you win, some you don't, about moving the sellers to change the business model of how you're selling your inventory. Inventory, whether it's an audience or it's a 30-second commercial. But hey, the agency wants it that way. And I mean, we've got lots of interesting stories. I do think that with addressability and what we love about the MVPDs that we're working with, not because they're here in the room, but they are not encumbered by those business practices. They are looking at their inventory holistically and saying, how do I top down start looking at how am I going to allocate my inventory properly? There's going to be multiple channels of sale. It's not just going to be programmatic. It's not just going to be direct sales. There are going to be multiple channels where I sell my inventory. I need the tools and the flexibility to make the decisions based on the market demands, based on clearly my technology. Can I do addressability? Do I have it over the top? And what I think is changing now is I think what the MVPDs are doing is going to push the programmers to rethink how they're selling, specifically with like audience-based selling. While they can't do addressability over the set-top box until they give some of that inventory to the MVPDs, they can change selling the way they sell and moving towards audience-based selling. And I think that's a huge opportunity for the programmers that they're just starting to think about now. Anyway,
well, Dave, so that's an excellent point. So Dave, you've been in the midst of that, or in the mix of that programmer-operator kind of kludge, right? And maybe I've seen maybe the insights about where that kind of stuff could go, right? The collaboration perhaps better between a programmer and a network operator to do some new and more intelligent things, no?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. One of the interesting things to take away from this conference over the last couple of days is the focus on the 2 minutes an hour. That's just a US phenomenon. In the rest of the world where I'm doing deals, it's programmers, broadcasters, and distributors coming together. So for example, in Brussels, where we'll launch in February, that's a transaction with Liberty Global as the operator, SBS Broadcasting as the distributor, and a host of other component players to make it happen. Same thing in China, same thing in South America. In Brazil, tonight, 92 million people will tune in to one channel to watch a novella. It's the Super Bowl every night. So we're most excited about other markets where this 2 minutes an hour doesn't necessarily exist. So in some respects, it might have put a little grit in the gears and slowed things down. But I think it's incumbent on me to maybe share with the group the speed at which this is taking off. I mean, the folks at Dish and DirecTV and Verizon, for example, have been doing this for years. Last month, they placed 9 billion addressable impressions. I mean, this thing is scaled up at a really big level. And they've done a heck of a great job of working the processes out to enable it to be at that level. You know, we're adding 1.5 million subscribers a month, and we have a 3-year window of that pace. So we have 35 million installed, 68 million in contract negotiations, and another 90 million identified around the world. So the pace of this is really, really happening. So for anyone who's sitting back and thinking, I want to maybe watch and see, you know, when this is going to come to be, you're already late to the party. You should be on the phone with Adam and Jason and getting in here, because the water's warm. The results are phenomenal. I can tell you that I never once showed a banker the lift that we're achieving. Never once would I've ever believed it. And so with the help of guys like Erwin and Tracy and others who have been sitting at the table listening to me for years on some of this stuff, it's great to see the dream come true. But the whole how long is it going to take program is behind us. This is a race. It's a race car heading down the track and picking up speed as it goes. So it's not going to go backwards. It's just going to go forward.
Congratulations.
Very exciting.
Good for you.